On this week's show, is the USA on the verge of a second civil war? Has one already begun? Also, why many USA cities have stopped recycling and why that's a problem and how to fix it. But first, the Boeing 737 MAX. Is this important story a symptom of government failure? I'm Holland Cook in Washington. This is The Big Picture on RT America. The Boeing 737 is the most common commercial aircraft type in the sky. It's the only plane Southwest Airlines flies, and the new 737 MAX jets are their best-selling airliners ever, yet over 300 of them remain grounded. Some 5,000 now on order are most of Boeing's backlog as the investigation into what happened in two recent MAX crashes continues. There are disturbing new questions. For answers, let's welcome Jamie Finch, who served as the National Transportation Safety Board's Director of Public and Family Affairs for 8 years. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
The Wall Street Journal is reporting that U.S. officials have said the government's recent shutdown also halted work on the fix for 5 weeks.
Correct.
And now the FBI is looking into Federal Aviation Administration allowing Boeing to certify its own systems. And while other countries were quicker than the USA to ground the 737 MAX, an acting commissioner was running the FAA. Boeing reportedly spent over $15 million lobbying Congress in 2018 and put $1 million into the Trump inaugural. Jamie, how much is government gridlock and greasing the wheels to blame?
Well, I mean, money and politics have always gone hand in hand for all history. And quite honestly, Boeing is playing by the rules, is what the game is. They're not doing anything nefarious. They're not playing. They're not giving politicians money under the table and so forth. It's all up and up, and in full disclosure. This all works. And the donations and so forth, they work whenever the integrity is maintained. Whenever the integrity starts to be compromised, that's when you start having these questions, and people start doubting. It's like, well, wow, they're influencing these people, and they're hiring these people from the Hill, and
right.
the administration and so forth. And the fact of the matter is, you cannot stop people from going to work somewhere where they want to work. That's not the country we are. Secondly, one of the attractions of going and working for the government, because the government is not the highest paying employer in the world.
Sure, yeah.
But one of the side benefits of when you leave the Hill or when you leave the government is that you could possibly go work for something in the private sector where you have learned and gained tremendous skills in the government, and you have value to them. And you're actually continuing that value that you had when you were working for the government, but only in the private sector. But appearances sometimes can throw things.
Right.
And from somebody from the outside who doesn't know the background story of where this person came from and what they're doing and how they got there, et cetera, it looks like it can't pass the smell test. It really can, but on face value, it doesn't.
I fly every week, so I'm comforted to hear you say Boeing's playing by the rules. Are the rules flawed? How about them self-certifying hardware and software? Is that a bit much?
No, I mean, they've been doing that for quite some time. It's not practical or feasible for FAA to have the same trained employees to match what Boeing has. They cannot pay them the same. It's just ridiculous. The main purpose of this, and it goes back to what I said a few minutes ago about integrity. The main purpose of this was to allow Boeing to self-certify, but FAA as the regulator and the oversight agency will make sure that the information that they are getting is correct and they're not being influenced in any kind of way with their decisions they make regarding regulations. Somewhere along that chain, there's been a break. And we've got to get to the bottom of that and find out what's happened. There's a lot of great people and fantastic people that work for FAA and throughout the government, and also for Boeing. And some of them worked for the government and then went to Boeing.
Yeah.
And so, we cannot just burn Boeing down because they've been doing this. No, we've got to get to the bottom of it. We'll solve the problem. Boeing doesn't want to have crashes. It doesn't do anything good for their sales.
And they lost this big order just now, sure.
Yeah, and like you said, they have 5,000 of these planes on back order.
Right.
But let's not forget the airlines, like Southwest. Southwest had just opened up to fly to Hawaii because of the MAX jet,
Sure.
the MAX series. Now that's been grounded, and so it cascades throughout the economy.
A friend, an associate who is a pilot, debriefed a fellow pilot who flies for Southwest and says they love the MAX. And he suspects that the problems they've had in these crashes elsewhere in the world were pilot training. They didn't know how to disable that MCAS. And we're hearing horror stories about lack of simulator time. They've been briefed on iPad. These are weak links in the chain.
I agree. And actually, I talked to some of my friends at FAA just the other night, and they said the exact same thing. The questionable training that these pilots have had. Now, in this Ethiopian Airlines crash, the pilot, the captain, had 5,000 or so flying hours, maybe 8, ridiculous high number.
Sure.
The co-pilot had 200.
Ouch.
It's almost like somebody that is a race car driver and somebody that just got their learner's permit. I mean, there's no comparison. Now, I'm sure that they were putting them together so the senior pilot could help mentor that junior pilot. And these planes are very, very complicated. And also, they're very computer controlled.
Right.
And quite honestly, the computers are flying the plane.
The pilot's always got to be able to ultimately have the yoke, though.
Right.
Huh?
We're not anywhere close to being near the driverless car situation for planes in any kind of way.
Well, I'm told you could take it off, fly it, and land it with nobody up front, but there'd be nobody in the back.
No, I don't want to be up there.
Thank you, former NTSB Public Affairs Director
Sure.
Jamie Finch. Appreciate your perspective on this important story. For decades now, our cities and towns have been nudging us to recycle. Where I live, we pay by the pound to dispose of trash and garbage, but we toss our recyclables for free. Lately, though, some cities have stopped recycling, with some now burning instead. Obviously, an environmental concern. Why is this happening, and what's the fix? Let's welcome back Brian Keane, president of SmartPower, a nonprofit marketing firm dedicated to promoting clean, renewable energy and energy efficiency. You were a guest on my very first show.
I remember it well.
We haven't scared you off yet. Welcome back to the big picture.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Business as usual had been to sell recyclable trash to China. How did that break down?
Well, good question. But actually, because it's becoming big business, actually. So what's happening is that we're seeing it's big business and it's getting confusing and complicated. So what's happening in different municipalities and different cities and towns is that we have a system now where people are able to, as they say, single stream recycling. And you and I want to basically take all our plastic and our paper and we just throw it into one bucket and it goes off to the recycling companies and boom, we're happy. But it's really not that easy for the recycling companies. And so it's quite expensive. So cities and towns are actually saying, hey, we actually can't afford to do this. And then what happens is that other companies come in and say, hey, we'll actually bid this out. And some of the cities and towns are saying, well, actually, why don't you bid it out to our customers, to our citizens, as opposed to the city and town itself? And that's kind of what you're seeing is happening. So that's some of the breakdown. And it's actually too bad on some level because recycling has been so amazing here in this country up until this point. And then part of the other problem, if I can, is we're seeing other people, and so a lot of people, wanting to do more. So you see composting really take off. And so cities and towns are saying, hey, not only are we going to recycle, but now you can compost, and we'll do curbside composting. And that adds an extra expense for a city and town as well.
Right. The process has to be very labor intensive and hardware intensive. The New York Times is reporting that Philadelphia is now burning what previously was recycled. It's a waste to energy system, and that those recycling bins in the Memphis airport all get dumped together in landfills. Is what's happening in Philadelphia a breakthrough? And what are the inherent problems with landfills? How many mountains do we need?
Well, there's some of that. But some of it can be a breakthrough too, because what you're doing is actually you're burning to energy. So it's kind of cool. And you see actually some of this happen not only in Philadelphia, but in Boston too, where they can actually take that trash and burn it to energy. Now, there are CO2 issues, there's climate issues for that. But you actually see, hey, if we can take some of that trash and instead of actually turning it into recycling and actually, trucking it far distances, aren't we actually saving CO2 and helping the climate issue by actually just turning it right into energy here? Right. The other thing that's interesting, though, with the composting piece, if I can, is that it actually shows the maturation, if you will, of all of us. Composting and this is kind of the fresh fruits and vegetables that in your kitchen, and you take the apple core, and instead of just throwing it in the trash can, you're actually putting it into a separate bucket, and then that goes to a separate bin, and it turns into soil, right? So it's kind of amazing that people are actually doing this. They're actually letting their fruits and vegetables, if you will, rot on their kitchen counter, and then they put it into a different trash can, and it goes somewhere else. It's pretty amazing.
We've largely been talking about consequence. Let's get back to cause. Many cities are now banning plastic shopping bags, plastic straws, even balloons. Can this help move the needle?
I'm a big fan of this stuff, and even that, and actually because you're seeing it's coming up from the grassroots. Is that actually what's happening? And I think this is actually consumer behavior being changed by consumers. And you think of it, the straws, for instance. I never ever use a straw at home. So if you were to come to my house for dinner and I gave you a straw,
That'd be weird,
right? You'd be like, "This is kind of gauche. Like, what's going on here?" But every time we go out to a restaurant, it's like, "Oh, a straw."
Automatic straw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird, but that's a learned consumer behavior, by the way. So now hey, you go to Bennigan's and it's like, "Hey, I got a straw," but we don't really need that. Straws can be medicinal when you're in a hospital and
Sure.
you need, get tonsils out or whatever, but we just don't need
The
them.
lips work pretty well.
Exactly.
You mentioned the grassroots yearning to contribute. Sustainability is now so vital, and it's such a big goal, it's intimidating. For those who are wondering, how can I do my part? I want you to take a minute to talk about the We Green program you're offering.
Sure, it's it's really very exciting that, in fact, We Green is my company, and basically what we do is we take social passion and we turn it into consumer action. That we know that every city and town, every Fortune 1000 company, every faith community in the world, quite frankly, has taken a commitment to be sustainable. And We Green helps them do that step by step by step through an online platform that they can actually then go and create and maintain and surpass all of their sustainability goals. So basically, it's a grassroots outreach platform for every company, every city and town, and every faith community or college and university to use and talk to and work with their constituents, their customers, their residents, to actually become part of the sustainability movement in their neighborhoods.
The website, WEE.green.
Exactly.
Not .com, not .org.
Thank you very much.
WEE.green. And as I poked around there, you could actually set up an e-commerce thing on your own site as a fundraiser.
Exactly
and
right.
make money while you sleep.
That's right.
While doing good stuff.
Exactly, exactly right. So basically, it is an opportunity for local communities to raise their own money while being green. It's really exciting.
Thank you, Brian Keane, president of Washington-based SmartPower and WEE.green.
Thank you very much.
Coming up, is the USA on the verge of a second civil war? We're going to speak to two people who know the true meaning of war, two former Pentagon officials. This is The Big Picture on RT America.